This section of video is to look at sentences 6 through 12 in part 1. Many of the sentences are very small, and you can probably translate most of them on your own. However, there are a few particular words that I would like to draw your attention to. Beginning in the first sentence, the word ita. If you look on the vocabulary list, ita means thus or in such way. It is used in the same way that we, as modern speakers of English, use the colon, which you see here in the sentence. It is used to introduce a speech or an idea or a significant thought. Any place where we would use a colon in our sentences as a punctuation mark. Remember that the ancient Romans did not have punctuation, and so words like conjunctions, or in this case an adverb, ita, help us to recognize that after the verb enuntiavit, we're going to have something said, or we're going to be starting a list of things. I also want to draw your attention to the phrase non jam. Non jam is a two-word phrase. It should actually be on the vocabulary list. Together, they create the phrase no longer. When we look at them separately, non means not and jam means now. So as together, the phrase means no longer. I also want to draw your attention to down here in sentence 11, equites in fugam equites dant. The verb dant is one that we are familiar with. It means give, but when it is used in a sentence with the prepositional phrase in fugam, which means into flight, that's the idea of not giving into flight, but we actually translate this as put to flight. So like you chase something away is the idea behind in fugam with the verb do dara, meaning to give. To give into flight means to put to flight or to chase away, something like that. It's not a good thing that's happening, and you most of the time see it used in terms of battle, where one group chases away or makes run away another group in the battle. I see the phrase non jam another time on line 11. Remember, no longer. Now let's go through and talk about some of the sentences themselves. There are a few things that I also want to draw your attention to within the sentences, starting with the first verb, enuntiavit. Again, as soon as I read it, I notice that V, which is indicative of a third principal part. And if you find this verb on the vocabulary list, enuntio, enuntiara, enuntiawi, you will see that V in the third principal part. The IT tells me that this verb is in the perfect tense. And of course, the ending on it is in the active voice, and it also indicates a third-person singular subject, a he, she, or it. Context of what we're reading is going to tell us whether we should pick he, she, or it. And as you've probably already guessed, we're going to pick he because it is Jupiter who is speaking. When I move on to the things that he says, the first thing out of his mouth is multi pugnai sunt. Obviously, the adjective multi is describing pugnai. That often wants us, when we see them together like this, we often want to keep them together. If you do keep these two words together, you're going to have to remember that there is an alternate translation for the third person plural form of the verb to be, sunt. This is in the present tense. I know it's present tense because it starts with an S, and the only time the verb to be begins with the letter S is when it's in the present tense. Remember that this can be translated as there are. And if you're hoping to keep multi-pugni together, that's likely the best way to translate sunt, there are. When I look at the next sentence, I see it starts with pax, which is the nominative form. That's quickly followed by a prepositional phrase. It ends with the verb est. This again is the verb to be. Remember that when you are looking at the verb to be, if it starts with the letters es, you have found a present tense form of the verb. If you look at your verb charts, which outline the irregular verb charts, which give you all of the forms of the verb to be on it, est is on the present tense line. If you look at the imperfect and the future tense rows of that chart, all the verb forms there start with the letters er. So if you don't see an er, you are solidly in the present tense. We continue into the next sentence with another form of sunt. You'll notice that there are also two words, weary and liberi, a noun and an adjective, both with the same ending. Now, the positioning of them in the Latin sentence helps us to understand that the author wants us to use the noun weary in front of the verb and the adjective liberi after the verb. So you've got a sentence that has a subject, a linking verb or a form of the verb to be, and then a predicate adjective. The next sentence on line 11, terra libertatem amisit, is made up of only 3 words. When I look at terra, I notice that it is in the nominative singular form, and that supports the idea that the verb ends with a third person singular ending, making terra the subject of the sentence. Libertatem definitely has an accusative case ending on it, which means it's going to be the direct object. So you'll start with terra, you'll move to the verb amisit, and then you'll throw in your direct object. Let's talk about amisit. If you look for a verb on your vocabulary list that starts with amis, you're not going to find it, but you will find amitt. Amito, amittera, amisi, amisum. So this verb is from amito, amittera, and is built on the base of the third principal part. The it represents not only the subject, he, she, or it, but it also represents the tense, which is the perfect tense. And of course, the it tells us that it is in the active voice. We don't have to use the pronoun subject for amisit because I have terra in the nominative form, so that will be the subject of my verb. In the next sentence, we have the word hostes used twice, but I see no conjunction between them. So one is going to serve as the subject, and the other is going to serve as the direct object. This is a third declension noun, hostis, hostis, on your vocabulary list. It's a masculine noun, which means that the es ending, hostes, that we see here, marks it solidly as both the nominative and the accusative plural form. Notice that we also have a prepositional phrase in this sentence, ex. If you look at the vocabulary list, ex must be followed by the ablative case, and urbibus is our ablative case noun. So that's our prepositional phrase. Hostes expellunt hostes. The prepositional phrase is going to function adverbially with the verb to tell us where the hostes are expelled ex from. Let's take a quick look at the verb. I notice expello, expellere is on my vocabulary list. And I also see that I've got this letter U in front of the NT. That U is a connecting vowel for the present tense. And so this verb is actually in the present tense form, and the NT tells me that it is in the active voice. You can see that the next sentence, sentence 11, equites in fugam equites dant, is constructed very similarly to sentence 10, in that I've got equites used twice in the same sentence, just like I had hostes used twice. It too is a third declension noun. This is its plural, nominative, and accusative form. You will use the first one as the nominative and the second one as the accusative. Remember that dant, when it is with in fugam, is translated as put to flight, or you can even loosely translate it as chase away. It has a very negative connotation. This is not a good thing. Like I said, we would normally see this phrase when we're talking about a military battle, and when one group puts another to flight, they are chasing them off of the battlefield or out of some place. It's good for one half, but not the other half. Notice that dant from the verb do, dara, dati, datum is in the present tense. I can tell this because the base of my verb is D and the connecting vowel is A. The ending is NT, which makes it present tense. So make sure that you are translating the phrase in fugam dant in the present tense. I end with sentence 12, which also has the verb pugnant in the present tense. We know it's in the present tense because the verb pugno, pugnara is a first conjugation verb. The base is pugn, P-U-G-N, and the connecting vowel will be A in front of the letters N-T. Because I don't see a B-A or a B-I or a B-U in front of the N-T, I know I'm in the present tense. The N-T also tells me that this is in the active voice. So the subject of my sentence, which is fratres, I know it's the subject because fight does not generally take a direct object, but is usually completed with a prepositional phrase starting with. So I have fratres pugnant cum fratribus to formulate the thought of this tiny little sentence. I think you should do well in putting these sentences together. This should give you some idea of how they work and help you to make sure that you get your tenses and subjects correct. So take your chances at writing down what you feel these sentences say, and then if you need some help on the remaining parts of part 1, you can listen to the next video and find that help that you need.